All right, this is going to be my university style lecture on how to punish. Now, when we talk about punishing today, it's going to be block punishing. So when someone does something so unsafe that they can't recover before we hit them. So we're seeing the punish counter on the symbol on the side. That's the most important part. Now, these examples are going to be with Cammy, but the principles are going to be with any character that you might play in Street Fighter 6. Okay, so let's cover the types of punishes that I think you should learn at the start. There are 4 types of punishes that I think will get you out of 90% of scenarios, at least when you're starting out. When you start to learn matchups, there'll be punishes that will be specific against certain characters or certain moves. But for right now, this one should cover your bases pretty well and at least let you experiment. So we've got heavy punishes when things are very obviously punishable, like a DP, for example. Medium punishes are that kind of in between and kind of a safety. Light punishes are for when things are only just minus and you might need a very quick punish. These can be difficult because you need to be able to first recognize and 2 hit the timing. And then we have like range punishes. So anything like kind of recovers a little bit further away, but there is minus enough that there is something you can do about it. That's what we're talking about with range punishes. The button you use for range punishes can be kind of dependent, but we'll go more into that as we get to that section. So let's talk about heavy punishes. These are our most damaging punishes and probably the ones we want to get on top of the quickest. So for this example with Cammy, we're going to use Crouch Heavy Punch. And Crouch Heavy Punch starts up in 10 frames. So anything that's 10 frames or worse, we're going to use this punish. So here we're going to set up Ken to do OD DP on block. And as you can see that he's pretty minus afterwards. So let's do a basic combo. There's also some variation we can do for the exact same punish. These punishes in particular are very useful when the opponent's low on health and you can kill. And finally, let's do a drive rush. Okay, medium punishes. So standard medium punch for Cammy starts up in 6 frames. So anything between -6 to -9, don't worry about what that means yet. We're going to use this as our starter. You will note that the combos we're about to do look very similar to the heavy variants, and that's because we're able to get to a heavy target combo for Cammy, which is really useful for her. So for this example, with Ken, we're going to use medium Dragon Lash. It's that range that we talked about earlier. And again, we're going to do a pretty basic punish. Variation again. And a drive rush variant again. Okay, and finally light punishes. So light punishes are going to be probably the harder one to get used to because the block stun from the opponent doesn't last very long. So you have to be really on your game to make sure that you can hit these as soon as possible. If you're a little bit late, you'll tend to miss these. So there's a couple of strategies we can use to get around that fact, and we'll go through them in a second. Functionally for Cammy, the difference between stand and crouch light punch is negligible. So we're going to use either of them in this case. So the only example I can find on Ken is actually light Dragon Lash. That's what we're about to use. So again, we see very similar to all the combos before, but this is difficult. So here we're going to use a hit confirm instead. And just to spice it up, the air combo. Okay, and the last category is range punishes. So the only thing that I mean from range punishes is They do something unsafe, but they're a little bit far away for us to do our normal block punishes that we've been doing so far. So the move is dependent because now we're taking spacing into a factor as well as the frame data. So what moves you actually use to do this can be very, very dependent, as we'll see. So the example we're going to use for this is sweep, because you'll probably face this all the time. And let's keep it very simple. Crouch mini kick, spiral arrow. In fact, we can go even simpler and just sweep back. And here's a range punish that requires a fast button. Okay, I already lied because we're going to be covering Drive Impact as well, because Drive Impact is still a punish. You're punishing your opponent for doing something dumb. So it is good to also have a combo in this spot as well. The other thing to note is the combos that you'll do during counter Drive Impact is actually very similar to the combos that you'll do on a jump in. So you're learning two things at once. And this combo should be very familiar to you. Note we aren't using Crouch Heavy Punch before the target combo because we've already used the punish counter up, so we don't have the frames to do that. We can use Crouch Heavy Punch, we're just going to go for a different path. If we're trying to put together everything that we've learned so far in this video, this is what we're doing. I'm not expecting you to get this right off the bat, but it is good just to note how to string all the pieces together.
Let's go.
A little bit of a bonus. Let's talk about the wall splat at the corner. This is well within your wheelhouse. Okay, now that we have 4 different punishes, we're going to learn how to use training mode to now apply it to different moves that we haven't studied yet or we haven't practiced against yet. So let's have a look at one now. Okay, I want you to pay attention to the frame data bar at the bottom. All right, we're seeing with 14 frames, which is more than 10, which means... And now we have a new punish with a combo we've already learnt. So now when we learn a new matchup, because we have the 4 categories, we only have to worry about which of the 4 do we end up using against this particular move. And you can do that with the entire cast. You will find it is extremely similar between characters. Okay, but let's say we haven't put that time into training mode yet. How can I learn during the game which punish I'll be able to use? Well, the great thing about having it categorized from light to heavy is you can trial one and step up or step down depending on what ends up happening. So I've taken the frame bar away, and let's say we punish this move with our light combo. Cool, that works. What about medium? Cool, that worked as well. So now let's try using Crouch Heavy Punch. Alright, so that was a no-go. But now we know that against medium legs from Chun, we use our medium punish. Alright, we hit the end of the video. So just to recap, the 4 punishes we talked about, light, medium, heavy, ranged, is 90% of the things that you'll be doing, especially at the start. What I went through today, the combos are not actually the most optimal. I think there are other things you need to take into consideration, like using drive bar, going for better Oki, going for some setup if you want to use hooligan or something like that. Those are things that you'll probably be able to learn from actual Cammy players that aren't me. So you'll be able to feed them in to what your existing framework is for this. That's what the main part of this is. And there will be punishes that need very specific answers. So if you want extra homework, look up a punish for Rashid Eagle Spike, because that's probably one of the first punishes that you need to learn that's outside of the box of the 4 punishes we did today. So that's something for you to go out and learn and see what you can do and what you can come up with, or ask someone. That's perfectly fine as well. Yeah, I don't have an end to this video, so I'm just going to end abruptly, like now.